Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Uh, Different camera angle because different rig. This is what my current workstation looks like. That is a 40-inch flat screen television that is optimized to use for computer use. 120 gigahertz refresh speed, which is all I really need. Wireless keyboard, some stuff to allow me to use the space more efficiently, and these aren't quite doing the job. I need to get my eyes checked and a new pair of glasses. You might have noticed I haven't been wearing them the past few videos, as at the moment it's more comfortable not to. So we'll see how this angle works out. Right now my camera is resting on a big container of Utz peanut butter pretzel nuggets, and that's not going to be ideal for the long term, partially because I'm eventually going to finish the peanut butter nuggets. But also, things are in flux. Office is getting fixed. Those black shells going out at some point in time, although I'm keeping the radiation mask because I earned that damn thing and I'm keeping it. I mentioned a game I ran in passing a couple of videos ago and thought I would elaborate because people wanted to hear about this thing. Now, the game I'm talking about is a game I ran for my Wednesday night group. It is the dark and gritty cyberpunkish game that they asked me to run, in which one player came up with a character who is half car, tortured experiment by aliens in hell. Another player came up with a 1,000-yard stare, nigh emotionless, perfect cyborg assassin. And then there was the green space bear master of disguise. And that's how we refer to the campaigns, the Bearington game. There was another fairly famous, internet famous role-playing game in which someone played a character named Lord Bearington. This is not that game. That wasn't even mine. That was someone else. Some genius played an actual bear in a Dungeons and Dragons game, and who had a follower who was translating for him, but he was actually just playing a bear and couldn't actually speak, wasn't actually doing any of the things that were attributed to him. He was just going around killing people, and his translator turned him into a hero. While that is brilliant, this is different. And do a little background on this campaign, because the setting for the campaign is kind of unique, and it framed a lot of the events that were going to happen. Takes a little history. 2007, 2008, I released a role-playing game called Hot Chicks, the Role-Playing Game. It was tongue-in-cheek, or at least it started off as a tongue-in-cheek product that was meant to parody some things, and just give me an excuse to put pretty pictures in a book and sell it. And it turned into this 400-page monstrosity of all these ideas that I always wanted to see in a role-playing game but had never actually seen. The thing was years in the making, and I've got notebooks this thick of all the rules for making the rules for making the rules. This is the start of my obsession with writing RPG material. The setting was Earth, starting in the year 2015, but an alternate Earth where aliens and demons and the combined greed of corporate mankind had turned the Earth into a perfect storm of the degradation of the human individual to product and cattle. And a scant few members of society were fighting back against this. for a dystopian near cyberpunk game with elements of magic and psionics and kung fu, and of course cybernetics and all this stuff. As dystopian futures go, I didn't make it quite dark enough, seeing as how things have gotten to where they're at the moment, but it was a good setting. People are still very interested in where that setting is going. I wrote material for that for years. There's 200 books. Seriously. My catalog on RPG Now is kind of extensive. And for what started to be this kind of a joke product in my mind and spilled into the source book, I dug into some things that I really wanted to work on. What does it mean to be a person? The question of humanity and sentience and a soul, and what it takes to be a hero or a villain, and how these things go wrong. I actually dealt with some fairly deep philosophical issues. I dealt with some mature adult material as well, as I am wont. You may have seen my post on that a few weeks back, but overall I'm proud of the work. It culminated in a book released a couple of years ago called 2018 The War for Hell. All of these books I wrote, all those events, everything that happened in this world of hot chicks, that covered about 3 years of time in game. And it culminated with a fairly horrific climax to all the storylines. Inspiration, admittedly, I have to give credit where credit is due. The incomparable science fiction author Keith Laumer gave me a line in one of his short stories. I believe the title of the short story is The Devil You Don't, where Lucifer comes to Earth to ask for help from a physicist because, and I quote, "Hell is about to be invaded by alien demons from another dimension." How do you top that for a setup? So that was the War for Hell. Lovecraftian horrors from another dimension had co-opted these unholy hybrids between greys and demons, and they were taking over hell and threatened to destroy the foundation upon which all of reality and the entire universe was based. It is canon in the world, in these games, that humanity won. That hell is locked back away where it goes. The aliens are now no longer hovering over Earth like it's a buffet, but under tight control by a more Earth-friendly alien empire, and the world can proceed with humanity traveling towards a better destiny. There is another good book coming out entitled Destiny 2025, which would be the new source book for near modern roleplay in the Victory system. Which means that there's a 7-year period between the War for Hell and the beginning of Destiny 2025. It's going to be a very interesting time in the game world because a lot of things are changing. You have this planet that has suddenly become aware that magic and psionics, not just the heroes, not just the people in the shadows, not just the people in the halls of power who've been secretly controlling things, everyone can no longer deny aliens are real, demons are real, magic is real, and that world is changing, and it's not necessarily for the better. When my friends Josh, Al, and Wayne said that they wanted to play a grim and gritty role-playing game, I've been playing with this 7-year period in my head for a while, and That seemed like a really good setting because all kinds of horrible things can happen. You know, the original Hot Chicks was a place where horrible things could routinely happen, and heroes or adventurers, whether they were heroic or not, had to go and do something about it. That was the thing. Beat up the bad guys, take their stuff, lather, rinse, repeat. You've got horrible stuff happening, you've got to stop it. And the horrible stuff was going to change the nature of it. It's no longer driven by demons directly coming to Earth and abducting people, or aliens coming down and starting farms for humanity so they can ship them off planet and turn them into food and video games and furniture. Wayne came up with Spanner, Brother Spanner, a man who'd been they'd all been through the war for hell. All of them. They'd all gone to hell and fought for the future of the universe. They were veterans of this war. Brother Spanner came off badly. He was captured by the Greys, and they experimented with him. He'd been a driver before. They saw what they could do to merge him with technology. They weren't good at it. It was a kludge. He was awake for the entire thing. And they had access to some other alien machine that they figured, what the heck, let's throw it in there. So Brother Spanner, greatest driver you'll ever meet, tremendously powerful cyborg, really, really in pain, and a follower of Henry Ford, like religiously. Wayne actually found a old manual for car repair and maintaining a garage, and he took it and transformed it into a religious text. I've got to find it and publish it, actually, because it's kind of brilliant. You know, where the manual said, always work in a ventilated area, the text will say that, but then explain, you need to keep yourself open to ideas and concepts. You cannot let yourself stagnate within an enclosed space, but have an open mind. Brilliant. Josh played Mantis. Mantis was an assassin, a cyborg assassin, military special operative, deep cover elimination agent. He'd get in by stealth, usually by stealth, and then employ his cybernetic weapons to their best degree. He was a melee fighter. He could cut things up like you wouldn't believe. Utterly terrifying. Al decided to play Bearington. As I said, in the world of Hot Chicks, one of the threats that there are 400 alien species hovering over the Earth, arguing with one another over who got to despoil more of humanity. All of them had some use for human beings, the resources of the Earth, and they were just there to take them a bit at a time, shielded by cloaking technology and creative orbits. One of these races were the Ursine. The Ursine, space bears, bipedal, usually, extremely intelligent, and warlike, vicious, powerful. They're bears. Al likes bears. Al's practically a bear in and of himself. So, but not just any bear. He was a cyborg Ursine. He was a cyborg Ursine master of disguise. And he had a merit from the victory system called Unfathomable. A character with the Unfathomable merit may look entirely different. They could be alien or a monster or a cat person or what have you, but people will take them as normal. You can't really fathom what they really are. The universe somehow conspires to make them seem just like normal. You see if you saw a 6-foot blue rabbit wearing a trench coat walking down the street who had this merit, you would know, wow, it's kind of warm for a trench coat, and that's it. So everyone saw Bearington as just another guy, not a green space bear with antennas. When Bearington would use his cyber disguise ability and his massive disguise skills, everyone would see him as what he was disguising himself as. In reality, it was this giant green bear just putting on a hat or a funny pair of glasses with a funny nose on it. And the concept of a grim and gritty and dark campaign kind of went out the window. I could throw grim and gritty and dark situations, and I did. But we always had to contend with the fact that there was this bear involved. The first adventure was kind of amazing. Wayne couldn't make it. He's got a work schedule that often keeps him away from the games. But Al and Josh were in, and so they work for an organization. They are not aware that this organization is an outreach by the people who are trying to put together a proper functioning Earth to make the destiny of mankind go forward in a positive manner. The Destiny Council. All of the organizations that player characters worked for in Hot Chicks, but combined into a single unit. They were recruiting talent and trying to employ them to fix problems as the Earth encountered them. They got resources. They got a nice house in St. Louis. Quick note, one of the things I often did in this game, played it in my office or where we had a computer like the big screen I've got in front of me now. I'd pull up Google Maps and I'd use real world places. You know, this is where you're at. This is the building. We could pull up satellite imagery, and it really lent an air of authenticity to the events. Now, if you can do that in a modern or near modern setting, I highly recommend it, because you could, when people ask you, oh, where's this thing? As a game master without that kind of a reference, you're making things up. But as a game master with a map and a satellite image of stuff that's going on currently, you can just scroll over, oh, this is where you're at. This is what's happening, and you need to go over here to fix it. Especially if you're running some stuff off the top of your head, because people will ask you for stuff that you have never accounted for. Player characters do not acknowledge the existence of a box. So, Mantis and Bearington had to go and get this computer chip that had been stolen. They could track the computer chip, but someone had to go and actually retrieve it. It was a barge in the middle of the Mississippi. Anchored. It's not common to have things anchored in the middle of Mississippi, but for a little short time, just off the shores of St. Louis, there's a lot of stuff. I've run this area in games a lot because I spent a lot of time at Laclede's Landing, foot of the arch in St. Louis, and it's a fascinating place, and there's a lot of flavor, and because I know the place very well, I can escort people through it in the realm of my imagination very well. There's a big, interesting fuel depot on the east side of the river, right next to East St. Louis, where things also get very interesting. There's the arch itself, and the museum underneath it, and the Cleves Landing, which is this cobblestone area with all these shops and history and abandoned candy factories. It's just kind of an amazing place for so much stuff to happen. So there were river boats that docked there back in the day. The Admiral riverboat and the Goldenrod showboat, and they've got boats there that are gambling casinos, because you can have those on the river in Missouri. There was a McDonald's that was a riverboat in and of itself. Just incredible stuff. So having a barge anchored in the middle of the Mississippi, you couldn't do it for long, but for maintenance purposes or what have you, that works. You can have that. And it was at 4 or 5 barges that were tethered together and anchored by cables to either side so that they could perform maintenance. And they were doing something there where they had to be in that position. The plan begins. Josh looks at his character sheet. Al looks at their character sheet. Both of them look up and go, I can't swim. Neither of their characters is capable of swimming. Josh's character, Mantis, is too heavy. He has too much cyberware in him to swim. He is too dense to float at all. He hits the water, he sinks like a rock. In the Mississippi, the bottom 20 feet of which is solid mud, that is a death sentence. Bearington, he is a heavy gravity bear person. Again, his body is too dense to allow him any ability to stay on top of the water. I hadn't thought that through when I put the adventure up, but I never will regret that their first adventure was middle of the Mississippi with two characters who couldn't swim. I don't think Spanner could swim either. God. So that's okay. What they're going to do is they're going to go upriver a ways and get a boat. So, not a problem how to get upriver. Josh looks at his character sheet. Al looks at his character sheet. Both of them look up and go, I can't drive. There is a flaw in the victory system called bad driver, which means you just suck at driving. One of them had bad driver. The other one just had put no points into the driving skill. Neither of them have put points to the driving skill. So they took the car that they had in the garage, which was, there was Spanner's truck, which no one would touch ever, and then there was another vehicle that they could maneuver with. Street stuff, not equipped specially or anything. They managed through mostly misadventure to drive it to an area we spot on the map with a marina upriver of their target. Their plan? Buy a boat. Buy a boat. Okay. So they take all of the cash available to them, every last cent, and they sink it into a used touring boat. River touring boats are wonderful things. They're flat structures with lots of seats and some cover, and they're great for parties. This one is even a little special. I gave them, they looked for something special. I made a roll. The lower the die, the better it would be. I rolled like a 4 on a d20. So yeah, it's a little more maneuverable than usual. The guy who made the boat and modified it actually hooked up some of the controls on the trolling motors to a game controller, so it's actually easier to pilot than usual. Who has a boating skill? Josh looks at his character sheet. Al looks at their character sheet. They look at each other. Neither of them have a boating skill. So they take their boat out for its initial run. They do a little fixing up. Which one of them had the repair skills? Brother Spanner. Wayne's character had the repair skills. Mantis had a little bit. Nothing like Brother Spanner. Bearington could pick up heavy things, so they got it as seaworthy as they could. It was a used boat after all, even though it was a good used boat. They had to do some fixing and patching up here and there, and they got some fuel in it. No one ever opened up the bar fridge that was on the main deck, which is interesting because they never found the rabid raccoon that was kind of in there waiting for someone to open the door. The raccoon, spoiler alert, the raccoon doesn't make it. They get on the river. Okay, well, give me a roll because you're in the river now and there is a current and you are going in some direction. You just need to make sure you're going where you want to in that direction. There's a resource available to player characters in the victory system called Risk. You can spend it to re-roll failed rolls, or to give yourself a bonus to a roll and to do enhanced damage. It's they start burning Risk to not crash the boat. I included the mechanic of Risk in the victory system and Hot Chicks because depletion breeds suspense. So as you start to run low on this resource, you can refill it in the middle of the game if you've got some left, but you can run out. You can run out and then you are stuck with your flat distribution die rolls and life gets terrible. They start burning risk to not crash the boat. They have to navigate under a couple of bridges, undercurrent, in a boat that it's seaworthy, well, river worthy, and the penalties on the rolls start getting higher. So since they don't have great chances to do this to begin with, they start. Oh gosh, by the time they actually get to where they're pointed at the barge in their boat past all the bridges, things are getting tense. Al's plan. Bearington is going to pilot their boat to the anchoring cable for the barge and crash into it. At this point, a crash is the best plan they can have, on the assumption that their boat can take it. It was a risk. It didn't go well. They successfully crashed their boat. Not exactly the way they planned it, but it crashed. I roll for the boat structural integrity, and the boat critically fumbles that roll. It comes apart. There are now 2 people who cannot swim, for whom entering this river was a death sentence, crashed into a side of a barge in a boat that is disintegrating and catching on fire. They grab the anchoring cable and get to the barge as their boat turns into a flaming mass of jetsam heading down the river. That will become very important shortly. Mantis goes invisible. Cyber cloaking. He's the wind. Snicked, ready to go. Bearington disguises himself as a Cambodian boat person and starts yelling in a bad accent that the people on the barge owe him for his crashed boat. It was an interesting distraction during which Bearington got shot a number of times because there's a Korean mob operating the barge, and they are not friendly with people crashing into them. Not a cop, guns come out. Start yelling at them, bullets come out of the guns and into the bear. Mantis engages to try and pull them off of Bearington. They have cyborgs too. They have cloaked cyborgs as well. Mantis gets shot. They both get shot. They both get shot a lot. Bearington can take a few more bullets than Mantis can. Bearington tries to shoot back. He has a gun. It's not doing very much damage to the cyborgs. Bearington gets upset and starts biting people in the face. Bearington does a massive amount of damage. He's a heavy gravity bear person with cyber enhancements. I hadn't calced Bearington's bite damage before this situation. He was biting people's faces clean off. He was biting cyborgs' faces clean off. Mantis makes a run for the enclosure on the central barge where the computer chip is, gets in there to try and take out who is in there so he can acquire the chip, and he goes down. There's guards in there that just open up with MP5s, and he is dropped. He's not dead. He's unco. The state after that is dead. The state after that is dead as hell, and that is the fate that they're going to try and take into the next turn. Bearington comes in, sees Mantis on the ground. Bearington reacts very much like a bear and bites their faces off. It is not that he is biting them. It is not that he is going in bear, claw, swipe. No, Bearington is very deliberately going in and going for facial bites. like their whole face. He's getting cyborg stuck between his teeth. It's starting to get uncomfortable. In the bay, there is some stolen alien technology, the computers, and their chip. Amongst the alien technology, there are several alien medical beds. I say this 9 times in game, literally. Yeah, and then there's the medical beds over there. Oh, and you're looking at the screens, and then there's where you think the chip is, and oh, look, there's the medical beds. Hey, that's a rack of very advanced weaponry. You're glad they didn't get to that. And there's some power cells, and oh, look, there's some medical beds over there. After Al strips the bodies of their cyberware, which includes most of their skin, because they have dermal weave, it's how they can take so many shots. And thought, man, I really wish there was something I could do for Mantis. He said, oh wait, there's medical beds. Mantis gets fixed. Bearington gets patched up. They step outside. Remember how I said the burning boat traveling downriver might become important soon? Well, here's where it becomes important. There's a fuel depot on the far side of St. Louis across the river. I mentioned this fuel depot in my first Call of Cthulhu story. I've been past it a lot of times. It's not the first time I've blown it up in a game, but burning wreckage on the river running past into the fuel depot, and I rolled for it. Really, really sucky. Rolled the fuel depot ignites. People getting thrown off the boat, or, in lieu of having their faces bit off, are screaming, drowning, trying not to drown while they're encased in flaming oil, and then the fuel depot goes, and they were inside for a while doing the treatments on Mantis in the medical bed and stripping the bodies and getting the computer chip. They step out. Fuel depot is ablaze. It is lighting up the sky orange for hundreds of miles. And the river is flooded with fire patrol boats and police. A lot of them, wondering what's going on over here, finding bodies shot up and people burning and wreckage, and Bearington comes out of the enclosure with an armload of arms and skin and other bloody chunks of cyborg that he thought he could sell on the open market, on the black market, which he certainly could have. Thinking fast, thinking very fast. Bearington staggers over to the police and screams, "Thank God you're here." He is the master of disguise. Bearington is the party's face man. He is their social operative. He convinces the police that he is a victim of circumstance, a poor Cambodian boat person who was abducted by these people, who was forced to carry a load of their skin and arms, and just managed to escape. You'd think this would be the end of it, but no. Because he's covered in blood. There's no hiding the fact he's covered in the blood. It's not his, but they get one of the medical evacuation choppers that is over the river to lift him. They put him in the carrying cage and lift him up and fly him to the hospital. If they get Bearington to the hospital, there are problems, because even though he's unfathomable, he cannot withstand a medical examination. They'll rather rapidly realize he is an alien bear and imprison him or dissect him or something. It's not a good thing to be an alien bear in this world. Earth is just thrown off the yoke of alien oppression. People are twitchy. So Mantis has to get to the hospital before Bearington gets into an exam room. Did I mention that Mantis can't drive? He hides on a police boat that is heading for the shore, beats someone randomly up to discover where the closest hospital is, and runs there. We look it up on the map. It's not close. Not super close. Not running there close. Because Barrington is freaking out on the comms, telling you got to get me out. You got I can't get in here. It'll be bad. I can't get. Mantis runs to the hospital. Cyborg, so he's got some ability to run. He had to burn risk to get some speed and to make his cybernetics work better over the short term. Bearington is flown to the landing deck on top of the hospital. Mantis gets to the hospital. He has to do this as a stealth operation. He runs up the stairs. It's to the roof. It's not a short hospital. It's 40 stories up the stairs as fast as he can make it. They get Bearington, the gurney, lowered down to the hospital roof. They start to pull him off. Mantis comes out the door in a panic. Al looks over at Josh and says, "I'm sorry." Bearington yells, "Look out, it's a terrorist," pointing at Mantis, and tackles him down the stairs. They go down all the stairs. Now, they both have certain enhancements so they can absorb the damage. They are then forced to hide in the hospital while people search for the terrorist and the bloody man who is transported from the massacre on the river until their butler, happens to be Gelt, he's an NPC in this game, their butler manages to pick them up from the cafeteria, sneak them out. Incidentally, the computer chip has been taken as evidence by the police, and they need to go and get that out of the evidence locker. That was relatively easy, actually. They just asked Gelt to go in and do it, and he was very polite and had access to lawyers. This is the game where we started using the phrase "Dammit, Bearington," interchangeably with "Dammit, Al." In fact, sometimes in games where Al might do something a little bit troublesome for the rest of the party, we will still occasionally just say, "Damn it, Bearington," because it became part of the parlance. Thank you for following along on this one. There will be more Bearington stories. This is just the first adventure. The game ran for quite some time, and it occasionally became even more interesting than this. The game didn't ever really have the grim and gritty edge I was hoping that it would. There were some terrible things that happened, and there was some dark moments, and things got very bad in certain situations, but the characters had an interesting dynamic, and the players couldn't stop laughing long enough when things got very bad. It's not a bad thing to have in your game, but damn it, Bearington. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you have any questions or comments, suggestions, or something you'd like to see me talk about, or if you have your own stories of your own Bearington, leave me a comment. You'll love leaving me a comment. I'll love getting one. If you'd like to see these videos as soon as they come out, hit the subscribe button. If you hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell next to the subscribe button so you get the notifications. If you really dug this video, I invite you to hit me up on my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/DeCorum, and consider donating. Every little bit helps and helps me make better videos, more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm DeCorum, and this is what has mattered to me, and I'll see you next time with the next matters of DeCorum.